What's the nastiest kind of instant karma you've ever witnessed at work? I've had this unfortunate habit since childhood. Back in school, I had some terrible teachers who screamed at every mistake. Over time, I developed a stress reaction. When things got too overwhelming, I'd start vomiting. At first, it was my body's way of proving to my mother that I was sick enough to stay home, but eventually, it just became automatic. Even as an adult, if I'm under enough stress and can't calm myself down, my stomach takes over. I can delay it by focusing on breathing and shutting my eyes, but sooner or later, if I don't escape the stress, it happens. Now, to explain a little bit of German work culture, we have something called Zeitarbeit. It translates loosely to temporary employment. Basically, you don't apply directly to a company, you apply to a staffing agency, and they loan you out to companies on 6-month contracts. If the company likes you, they might hire you full-time. If not, they let you go and rotate in another temp. In theory, it's a foot in the door. In practice, most companies just use temps until their contract ends because it's cheaper. They don't need a reason to cut you, just it didn't work out. By 2018, I was on my 4th temp job. At my first placements, I bent over backwards, over time, covering tasks outside my role, never calling in sick. I thought if I proved myself, I'd get hired, but it never happened. So by this 4th job, a factory gig where I packed and sorted goods, I changed my approach. I still worked my 40 hours and always showed up on time, but no more unpaid overtime. I was doing my job, but nothing extra. The manager didn't like that. She demanded overtime almost every day, and when I refused, I could see the irritation in her face. Then came the breaking point. I got sick. Not just a cold, I had a painful cyst in a very sensitive area. Walking, sitting, even standing, felt like someone stabbing me with a knife. The doctor gave me antibiotics and a sick note for 7 days. I called in, like I was supposed to, but my manager demanded I bring the note in person, or she'd terminate me immediately. So, in pain and exhausted, I had my parents drive me in. I waddled through the factory like a penguin bow-legged with discomfort. She didn't even notice me limping when I walked into her office and laid the doctor's note on her desk near a stack of other documents. That's when the lecture began. She didn't just ask how I was or accept the note. She tore into me. In that patronizing, superior tone, she accused me of being lazy, of faking illness for a paid vacation. She said I had no work ethic, that my refusal to do overtime made me a poor worker, and that if I wanted any chance of being hired, I needed to give 110%. Her voice rose higher and sharper with every sentence until she was practically yelling. Meanwhile, I was barely holding myself together. The pain in my body was unbearable. On top of that, I felt the old familiar nausea creeping up. I tried to hold it back, deep breaths, steadying myself, but she wouldn't stop. When I tried to speak, she cut me off and scolded me for disrespecting her by interrupting. So I stopped fighting it. And right there in her office, in the middle of her tirade, I vomited. It spilled across her desk, covering the edge of my doctor's note and soaking into some of the papers she had been working on. The room went dead silent. Her face was priceless, stunned, disgusted, completely lost for words. If I hadn't been in pain and horrified myself, I might have laughed. Finally, after a few moments of stunned silence, she told me to go home and rest, something she could have done at the very beginning. A week later, I returned. I was called back into her office, only this time another higher-up manager was there. They told me I had destroyed important documents and asked why I hadn't at least turned away when I got sick. I explained as calmly as I could. I had a cyst. I couldn't walk, twist, or move quickly without extreme pain. Running to the restroom wasn't an option. And besides, I shouldn't have been forced to bring the note in person in the first place. By law, it can be submitted later. The other manager glared at her, clearly realizing she'd overstepped. After a bit of awkward back and forth, they let me return to work. Of course, when my 6-month contract ended, they let me go anyway. I wasn't surprised, but I wasn't sorry either. That job wasn't worth keeping. I decided to focus on my health, both mental and physical, instead. The funny part? She didn't last much longer. Within months, she was gone. And by the end of 2024, the entire factory shut down. Former co-workers told me turnover was constant, morale was terrible, and people were quitting faster than they could hire replacements. To this day, I still remember the look on her face when karma struck in the messiest, most unexpected way possible.